the mindset crisis amongst South Africa's youth. And the question that I posed to you before we went into an ad break, and also, listen, adults, you can pitch in on this one, because a lot of you have got young people in your homes. You've got children that are young. You've got, you mentoring young people in your business. A lot of you are working with young people in your business. So you need to be able to understand exactly what you're working with. But I'm going to give you the mental health landscape in South Africa for these young people. It says, the stats say that 1 in 4 South African youth is estimated to suffer from depression, anxiety, or PTSD. 1 in 4. 1 in 4 South African youth is estimated to suffer from depression, anxiety, or PTSD. So therefore, the question I ask you is, have young people become soft over time, or have the problems become more magnified? Have they lost resilience? Maybe because I'm an honorary youth for today, I'll say we. Have we lost resilience? The ability to overcome difficulties and overcome and overcome and overcome? Or have the problems become so overwhelming that you do not know how to adapt and adopt resilience to solve? Is the issue resilience, or is the issue the types of problems you are navigating today? Because I come in from a space of thinking that young people, and I do have to make a confession. My name is Faith, and I fall into that category of adults now that think that young people have become soft over time. But that may not be the case. So we've invited the experts in the studio. We're joined by Veli Ndaba, who is described as the NeuroEngineer. Love this title. NeuroEngineer. And by the way, he's got a book out where he looks at the neuroscience of effective leadership, transforming leaders from leadership darkness to leadership light. Veli, thank you so much for joining us in the studio this evening, and welcome to Metro FM Talk.
Thank you very much, Faith, for having me. It's such a pleasure.
And maybe let's talk a little bit about this, because, I love the way you described as the NeuroEngineer. And you were saying to me, because I was wondering, because you've got a qualification in engineering,
Yes.
and you've also got a BSc, but you wanted to understand the psychology and the neurological pathways. Just talk a little bit about that. Why go into neuroengineering?
Exactly that. And working with people, my passion is about understanding what happens in the brain and body when we experience certain emotional states. So there's been a lot of talking around why people are why people are behaving the way they do. But I've always been very fascinated by science behind it. Because it's easy just to talk about things and say, when people behave like this, it's because of this. And some of the things, when you talk about neuroscience, for me, it was about bringing in the hard science to what is called soft skills. Anything that is called science, it means it's evidence-based. It's data-driven. It's not just someone that can say, I feel this is how it works. It's not about feeling. It's about
Evidence.
It's about data. So what I love about neuroscience is that it heavily relies on things like fMRI scans, like your functional magnetic resonance imaging, your EEG scans, electroencephalography, your PPE scans. So it's not a guesswork. You can tell exactly, even using there's a technology as well that is used called BOLD. If you think of BOLD, BOLD, which stands for Blood Oxygenation Level Dependent Technology.
Blood Oxygenation Level Dependent Technology.
So it means that under the scan, you can be able to see which brain region is active when someone is engaged in a certain activity. So this is not like a guesswork. So over time, this is something that has accumulated in terms of data. So now human nature is better understood than it used to be understood before. So that's why you'll hear people saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And science has proven that that is false, because the human brain can keep on developing in terms of structure and in terms of function until you die. So this is something that is called neuroplasticity. It means the brain is malleable. It's plastic, depending on how you use it. If you expose it to a different experience or a different environment, it's going to adapt. That's how we are. So you can't just say, this is who I am. Because if you change, you have the ability to do so. So now, bringing in neuroscience into that, into human behavior or human nature, it helps us understand why we do what we do.
And Veli, let's go deep into this now. Because I've just read out the stat of 1 in 4 young people suffering from anxiety, depression, PTSD, right? And then I'll go back to the youth of either my generation or generations, because I'm what you would describe as a millennial, right? So Generation Y. Then you go to Generation X and the baby boomers, and so the line goes. And when you look at the different generations, there were the generations of what I'd used to term as resilience. And I refer back to the youth of 1976. I don't think I can learn algebra and Afrikaans today. There is no ways. As millennial as I am, there is no ways I would accept to learn algebra and Afrikaans. But we had a generation that passed even under those circumstances, the resilience, right? Who were shot at, that had rubber bullets, that had dogs, and were able to still rise above. Today, we've got a young people where they're saying, we don't have the power. We can't do anything. Have young people, and let's talk about the neuroscience now. What does the neuroscience, or what does the science say about the young person's mindset today compared to previous generations?
You see, now this is where things become different, because when you look in the 90s, like just to give you a little bit of information, around the 1900s, the beginning of the 20th century, knowledge was doubling every 100 years. So it means whatever you knew for 100 years, it will stay there. But by 1945, knowledge was doubling every 25 years. And by 1985, knowledge was doubling every 13 months. And by 2020, knowledge was doubling every 12 hours. So which means that when you wake up in the morning, you have the truth, you have something that works. By the time you go to sleep, maybe you had a pager. You know the pager that they used to use before? But when you go to sleep now, there's a cell phone. That has replaced the watch, that has replaced, that pager, that has replaced like the other phone that you used to have, like the old one. So it means what we are dealing with now, the information that we have, the volume has more than doubled. It means the brain is not wired for that. We are still carrying an ancient brain in a high-tech world. The brain that we have can only hold about 60 thoughts per second.
The human brain can hold 60 thoughts per second.
Yes, but here's the thing. We call it 60 bits of information. But it's bombarded with 11 million bits of data per second. Now 11 to 60. Now you can tell the difference. So now that information is increasing every time. That's why in 1970s there was a guy by the name of Herbert Simon, who was an economist. He said, in the 21st century, it's not going to be called just the 21st century. It's going to be known as attention economy, because there's going to be so much to deal with, but we only have limited amount of attention that we have to deal with.
Do we not have neuroplasticity that allows us to be able to expand the capacity of information to retain?
Unfortunately, the brain can only has that so much capacity. It cannot take everything. So now, when you look at it right now, there's no focus, because you go on social media, people are scrolling. There's something right now, to support the point, something called social media depression. It means you are going there, you are scrolling on social media, and that is very addictive because it gives you free dopamine hits. So dopamine is what the brain is after. It wants excitement. And that excitement, it comes at a price, because for you to focus, it means you've got to delay that. There's a phenomenon now called nomophobia.
Nomophobia.
Nomophobia is that phenomenon where people are feeling like they are naked, or there's something very wrong when they're not having their phones in their hands. So this is something. So when you look at the generation in the 70s, they never had those things. So when you look at the amount of information we're dealing with now, and there's less attention. And before, the economy, the enemy was sort of like the same, because people knew there were fewer things that we had to deal with. But now, when you look at
and
the
you could
generation
focus,
now,
Veli, because you never had social media that feeds you dopamine.
Absolutely.
You never had the 1 million
11 million bits of data.
11 million bits of
against
data
60.
Against 60 per second.
Yes.
You never had. So the young people of 76 could focus. There was a task at hand. The enemy is Afrikaans. The enemy is oppression, and they could focus and go after the enemy. Now we've got 11 11 million
Bits
beats of data per
Yes,
second.
Yes.
Aye.
And also, when you look at that, the brain now, when you look at the level of anxiety, it has gone up. When you look at because anxiety is that situation where you overthink things. You are worried about the possible outcomes, but you are not being able to focus exactly on what is happening right now. So when you look at those things, therefore, those times are different. And I know that we say people were resilient before than now, but times are different. We are dealing with different issues now, because when you look at the level of corruption that you are faced with every day, when you look at the number of, you look at the level of GPV that you are faced with today, when you look at the level of unemployment that you are faced with today, you're looking at graduates, that have got all the qualifications, but they are not able to find work. So now those are the things that are driving the youth. And also when you look at the level of, we're not sort of like more of a goal-driven society.
Why?
We have become more of an entertainment-driven society.
Why? What happened? What happened to us? Let's talk about the neuroscience. Now, what happened to us that made us change or made us pivot from goal-driven to entertainment-driven?
Now, this thing of entertainment is because things have become easier. It's like when you look around, you can just seem to be getting things. And when you look at the level of social media, what is pushing through, and like everything is easy and everyone is saying, no, you can make it. Now we have normalized, or they're encouraging the culture of working smart. Now working hard, it means it's being replaced. That's one of the causes of stress and depression again, because the level of expectation is quite high, and yet the level of effort that the young people are putting in is actually not as much. Because the expectation is that things are going to happen fast. I'm just going to get this cryptocurrency and get this, and I'm going to be rich. Why work hard? Because now when you look at social media, it's all about comparison. We're comparing ourselves with other people. And if I were to ask you now, if you've got 5 pictures and you've got to choose one that you have to post on social media, how long does it take you to choose?
A long time, because you want to choose the best one.
Exactly the point. So it simply means that we are comparing ourselves with the best versions of others, and yet we are pushing ourselves behind. And as we are doing that, it makes you feel that you're not good enough. And that is part of something that is called, because we are social creatures. So every time you look at someone is posting their picture in Dubai, someone is posting their picture on private jets, someone is, posting their picture wearing a Louis Vuitton. And now you start feeling that it means I'm not good enough.
Meanwhile, you don't know that the Louis Vuitton was bought in some place that is not at the Louis Vuitton store. Or you don't know that the jet that they're posting on was just an influencer campaign, and that the jet never took off or went anywhere in the country. You don't know that Dubai trip, the things that they have to do to even be in Dubai and itself. So you don't know the backstory, but because we're posting the latest version of ourselves, you're competing against that.
Exactly that. And that's because this is how the world is moving. We are looking at these things, and you want to be seen to be at the top, because we're very competitive as well. So this is part of what is called human nature. And so to be able to deal with these things, you need to win yourself over, because the brain takes whatever you feed it, good or bad. The brain does not discriminate. Whatever you spend your time reading, you become. Whatever you spend most of your time watching, you become. And also, for you to be able to work on these projects or these goals that you want to achieve in life, it requires energy. But if you look at most people don't sleep. And now when you wake up, do you know that missing 2 hours of sleep, let's say you have slept only for 6 hours instead of 8, you lose about 20 points from your IQ level. It means if your IQ, if you have not slept for 2 hours, I'm telling you now, look at the studies, you become a bit foggy, you become more emotional, you are not yourself. So now people who are not sleeping all the time, they are disturbing something that is called the circadian rhythm. Because sleep is not a luxury. It's a biological necessity. So if you don't sleep, if you look at the number of people who don't sleep full 8 hours, not being disturbed, now you have to go to work. So it means you don't bring your best self every day. Now, that adds to stress. And stress over time, because stress, I need to stress, to state this. Stress is not a bad thing at all. There's a good stress and there's a bad stress. It becomes bad stress when it becomes chronic. So every day you're worrying about the same things or whatever. You are not able to renew your mind in terms of just boosting it, like by exercising, by sleeping well, because sleeping well is a magic pill. Exercising is a magic pill. Eating well is a magic pill. And if you look at things like, because before people were used to work a lot, they used to walk a lot. Today we're living these sedentary lifestyles. We're just sitting there, everything. You've got a remote control here. You just call, pizza perfect, whomever, they come and deliver. And you think you're living soft. So living soft is costing us in a big way. So those are the things that are costing. So in the brain, because the brain is designed to move around so that it can activate chemicals like brain chemicals like dopamine, like serotonin, oxytocins. These are the chemicals that keep you alive so that you can keep on moving and doing things and being productive. But now you are just sitting, and all you are actually releasing in your brain is cortisol, which is a stress hormone. It becomes too much. The brain ends up getting flooded.
What has happened? Are we becoming, the young people of today, 1 in 4 young people today suffer from anxiety, depression, or PTSD, right? And the question that I'm asking you is that have young people become less resilient? In other words, the ability to be able to overcome difficulties, or have the problems become more magnified and more difficult? And we're understanding this evening as we're unpacking with the NeuroEngineer, Veli Ndaba, about what does the science say about the way in which our psychology has been shaped, that is informed by neuroscience, and to help us to explain why do we do the things that we do, especially in the context of the time that we live in. So, as I said, get in with us, drop us a voice note, give us a call, and especially if you are a person that just doesn't understand why is it that you have become the way that you are now. I want us really just to talk about. And I want to drill down into what you said earlier about how we have become an entertainment generation, or entertainment-driven generation, instead of a productivity-driven generation, or even goal-driven generation, right? Entertainment-driven. How much of it is because, and somebody was saying this, I think it was even psychologists would often say that sometimes when we say programming, and I don't want to bring TV shows out of business, but even the existence of a television, right? Television, the existence of TV, is programmed a certain way for a certain purpose and a certain agenda. And I've often been surprised as to, I don't know how many people have this, but my white friends and my white counterparts, a lot of them will say to you, I don't have a TV in my home. And I used to think, why would you not have a TV in your home? But they wanted to be careful about what they watched. Just talk to us about the significance of programming. I never understood. Is some of it as a result of programming?
Yeah, programming is something that, because like the brain, when you think of it, whatever it's given, it takes it. So when you talk about programming, whatever you watch, whether you're watching it passively or actively, it shapes your thinking in a way. Because whatever you hear, it goes into your brain. And then it makes a certain impact somehow. That's the reason why we don't teach, like, have you ever noticed someone that you don't teach a kid how to swear or something like that?
You don't teach a child how to swear. No,
but
they know how to swear.
One day, they just
swear.
hear something, then you end up, hearing swearing. Why is that? So those are the things. No one just taught them, this is how you swear, but they learned that passively. And the more you hear of these things, and that's why it is said that be careful who you surround yourself with, because if those people that you surround yourself, they end up becoming exactly the representation of something that you're going to be in the future. So that is also part of programming. So it comes from watching things, it comes from listening to things, it comes from reading things. And those things, they actually form the program. There's a reason why in also neuroscience is that what has been found that by the age 35, 95% of you that is running in you is a program. It means there's a puppet master driving you. Now, for you to change that, it takes some effort. So that is something about the program. So you've got to be deliberate when you learn something, because that program, it's something that you keep on hearing over and over again. Then it becomes part of you.
And when we're looking at the state of youth today, I mean, I'm gonna just branch off from what one of the young people said when they were sending us messages here on our voice notes, and they said we don't have the power. That hit me deep. It struck me deep, of a young person in South Africa with all of the information, 11 million beads of data per second, and yet in the 11 million beads of data per second, they are able to still say, I feel disempowered. I feel as though I'm not in power. I don't have the power.
This is where the mindset shift is needed, because everything is about perspectives. They say nothing in the world has a meaning except the one that you give it. So the meaning that you give to something is the one. So when you feel that you don't have the power, it's just the perspective that you have taken. This is the reason why we need to surround ourselves with people that can coach us, that can mentor us, so that we can shift these perspectives, because you cannot do it alone. That's a fact. And once you want to do things alone, that's where you're going to be driven down to depression, or to a state of depression, because you think that you have a winning perspective, whereas it's not the only perspective. I mean, I've made so many, things and decisions, and you look at it and say, no, if I knew better, I wouldn't have, made that decision. So it comes back to perspectives. And I think the best thing, like if I talk to young people, it's try to identify some people that are level-headed around you and try to spend time with them. Just always try to pick the ideas, on certain things, because if you don't do that, you'll always feel that you are a victim. Because once you start feeling that you are a victim, then it's almost game over for you, because there's nothing, your creativity is going to go down, because you feel like it doesn't matter, whatever I do, it doesn't make any difference. So that's a state that we need to try to avoid.
Do you think a lot of young people in South Africa feel as though they are victims?
I wouldn't say a lot. Yeah, some of them, and it's a mindset issue. But I'm sure it's a sizable number that feels that they are not empowered.
What is the impact of, and I'm going to branch off from again another voice note that we had. They were complaining that young people today drink. They consume. They'll rather drink and groove than participate in policy and politics. What does the neuroscience say about excessive alcohol consumption and all of that stuff?
So there are two things that are happening in the brain. So the brain is trying to do two things. It's trying to run away from pain or something like a loss or anything that feels that it feels that it's a threat to it. The second thing is the brain is always seeking pleasure. Anything that is pleasurable, the brain loves it. But there are two things about things that give you pleasure. Like when you talk about happiness, there's something that is called instant gratification, and there's a delayed gratification. So the emotional brain doesn't like something that takes long. Whenever you have to do something and say, no, I'm going to do this thing in 2 years. In 2 years, I'm going to enroll for this, and in 2 years, I'm going to graduate, or in a month, I'm going to do this. The emotional brain says, I see that, but it sounds like pain to me. I want this thing that I'm going to be excited about it now. And then that's the reason why people end up engaging in things or indulging those things that are not really helping. So this culture this mindset of saying, I want to do this, the brain operates in a certain way, but if you don't understand it, this is the reason why then I'm here and I write these things, so that we can understand that the brain can be taught. Because if you cannot teach it, like to wait, then it's just going to naturally go and say, no, give it to me, and then it becomes very addictive. So the reason why once you reach that state of hopelessness, or you feel like nothing really works, then you'll end up numbing yourself, with alcohol, with other, substances that are not really helping you. And the problem with that is, once the brain can only manufacture a certain level of this chemical called dopamine in the brain. Let's say it can give you up to 100. It's measured in nanograms per deciliter. Let's say it gives you 100 nanograms per deciliter. But once you take an external substance, then it goes over the threshold of 100. Let's say it's 300. But if you think of things like cocaine can give you about 900 nanograms per deciliter. So it means it's 9 times more than what the brain can manufacture. And once you give that, the brain keeps the score. Next time you want just to do it the natural way, and it says, hey, buddy, you gave me that thing.
That's why
Give
they
it
say that
to me
once you
again.
hit your first hit of cocaine,
Absolutely.
you'll always chase your first hit because the brain can handle the capacity of 100.
And then you're giving it 900, and then it remembers that. That's why when people talk about things like, a rehab, like someone going on a rehab, you're doing something that is called dopamine fasting. It means you have to stop doing, like getting anything so that you can reset the threshold back to its natural state. Because if you don't do that, the brain keeps on doing that. So that issue of addiction, the same thing as social media. When you keep on scrolling, you say, I'm going to do it for 5 minutes. Next time is an hour. Next time is 2 hours. Now it means you cannot do anything without your phone. When you wake up in the morning, you just grab your phone because that's how addicted you are. Ask yourself a question. Can I stay for 2 hours without touching my phone? And if you cannot take even 10 minutes, then you need to seriously do dopamine fasting. So those are the things, because it builds up, from one thing to the next.
It doesn't help the fact that I use my phone to work. So for the next 2 hours, I'm always on my phone because I communicate with everybody around me. But, and again, in terms of just being able to re-engineer, let's spend these last couple of minutes looking at how do we actively re-engineer or reprogram some of the hard wiring that we've had over time. Let's say that the hard wiring is that I'm a victim, I can't change circumstances, I'm disempowered, my life is terrible. Why? And again, look at it from a perspective of the youth. If you're unemployed as a young person, you've got this qualification, you're unemployed, but your friends are on yachts in Greece because they're not going to tell you that the rich boyfriend took them there, right? They're not going to tell you that. But and you're looking at your colleagues or your friends that are in Greece right now, and you're thinking, my life is a misery. How do you start rewiring your brain so that it inputs something differently and inputs different perspectives?
It starts with this mindset shift where you need to talk to yourself differently, to say, what else can I learn from this situation? Because all of us are going through things. Now the question is, how else can I do this thing differently? And start talking to other people for different perspective. Because without a different perspective, you'll be stuck in your own perspective. And that will mean that nothing will help. And somehow, maybe the way you have been doing things, maybe you need to start applying differently. Maybe you need to look at those small things, because we cannot have a same answer for everyone. But I think for me, what works is when you start talking to different people so that you can get different perspectives. Because until you change your perspective, and that's why there's a saying that when you are faced with something that you can no longer change, maybe it's time that you have to change yourself. This is exactly what I'm talking about. When you change that perspective and say, what else can I learn from this thing? Have I done everything? What else can I try that I did not try before? And optimism is the most important thing that you can keep. That's positivity. Because even if things are not going your way, but keep on maintaining that. That's the reason why you need to surround yourself with people that are going to be able to support you. Because the challenge is, once you get stressed, once you get driven into depression, those things, they want you alone because you feel like you're not good enough. That's the most dangerous part. Because now when you start spending time alone in your room, you're locking up that room, then perspective is going to be lost.
Young people today are so driven by the need to succeed. But I ask myself, Veli, is it the need to succeed so that they can become significant? Or is it the need to succeed so that they get to post and get likes?
Just two things. The first one, let me look at that particular question. Is not the things that we chase that we are after, but it is the emotional experience that we are after. The things that we think we want, cars, houses and that, ultimately is the emotional experience that we want. Freedom. We want satisfaction. We want to feel that we are accepted as human beings. We want to feel that we are connected. So it comes back to that. Some of them, it's all about, obviously, posting to say I've arrived. But the amount of effort put in there, one thing that is missing is patience. Because we are here, we're talking about resilience. Resilience is not something that we learn from the textbook. Resilience is driven from the mindset of optimism. When something happens and you say to yourself, oh yes, I fell and I'm going to pick myself back up. I'm going to give it another shot. And that kind of mindset is the one that actually helps you build this resilience. Resilience and optimism are very related. You can't be resilient when you are pessimistic. That cannot. So we need to have that, and that comes through coaching as well. It comes through mentorship as well. You cannot just sit there, because at the same time we're not the same. And we cannot come up with one thing. One thing that neuroscience has shown is that no two people are exactly the same. And we differ at a genetic level. We differ as well in terms of the environments that we grow up in. Some people were raised well, but it doesn't mean that you're going to turn up well, because as a person, certain things change as you grow up. So I think those are the things that are very important to say. Resilience is something that we need to build, and it's linked to your mindset. If you don't shift your mindset and have people that are going to give you a better perspective, you're going to be stuck in your own perspective. And unfortunately, stress is going to be your best buddy.
I have to leave it here. I gotta go home. The show is over. Really, I appreciate you so much. I hope this is not the last time we're going to hear from you, because I think the nuggets of wealth and information and insight that we got today is something that we need to start disseminating. We need to start doing it intentionally over time. Love the neuroscience perspective, but I have to leave it here. I leave it in the wonderful hands of Paul Mtegaga on this Youth Day. Have a fantastic day. Be safe until you and me talk again. Bye.